Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel, and we're on part 2 of creating this door hinge. In video 1 we created the main leaf part of the hinge. In this video we're dealing with the connection pin and the connecting part of the full assembly. So I hope you're enjoying these videos, and let's have a look at finishing this part. If you like what you see and you want to donate to the channel, then you can do so via PayPal at paypal.com/paypalme/Darren B. Eastone, or at Coffee via ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can get early access and additional content, and that's at patreon.com/Mango Jelly Solutions. Links can be found in the channel header, on the About page, or in the descriptions of these videos. So the next object I'm going to make is the pin that goes through here. So this circle here, we're going to have a pin that goes through. And if I hide by clicking on the fusion and pressing the spacebar, you can see that we have a connection that runs all the way through here. And we can't really see, well, what this pin looks like. See how it projects out the back here with a little pin that runs through like a split pin. So we're going to model this. To do that, I'm going to use the part design workbench. We've used the part, so let's come over to the part design. And I'm going to create a new body, but I'm not going to create a sketch in here just yet. Let's bring back the fusion and take a look. We know that we have this circle in here, which is an arc. So I'm going to use a subshape binder. The body is active, so if I bind to this edge, it will be placed as a subshape binder in this body. That way we can actually take that edge, create some tolerance in there, and reference that in a sketch. We can't reference other objects that are outside of this body. FreeCAD won't allow you to do that. You have to bind them. So the body is active, it's in bold. If it's not, right click, toggle active body. Click the edge we want to bind, this inner edge here. Come up and use a subshape binder, or part design, create a subobject shape binder. If you look closely, you'll see a yellow line in here. So if I click on the fusion and press the spacebar, we can see we've got a yellow line there. Well, a yellow circle. Now, this yellow circle, if I come into the view and also bring up the size and the transparency, so let's drop the transparency to 0 and set the line width to around 2 or 3, so we can see it in there. So we've got that there. We can make a tolerance with this just by coming over to the data and coming down to the offset options. So the offset options down here, and we can set an offset. Because it's a planar shape, planar edge, we can take that offset and say put a tolerance in here of -1 millimeter. Trouble is, it will thicken the shape or thicken the edge. We can stop that from happening by coming into the binder and coming down and look at this offset open result and set that to true. This opens the offset, and if we bring back the fusion, we can see that we have a tolerance in there. So now I can make a sketch, reference this edge, and close this in some geometry. Why do we do this? Well, if this changes, say this diameter changes in here, it shrinks or expands, this will move with it and it will keep the tolerance. So let's click on the body and create a sketch, and we want it along the XZ plane. So going from the front and select XZ plane, hit OK. Now we can pull in that geometry. We are away from the point of origin, this point here, which is fine. We're going to bring these together in, say, an assembly and export them as an STL, or export out the individual parts. If we want to do, we can move these to the center of origin. So when we right click and transform, our handler will be, say, in the center of here. But I'm just going to go for this for the time being. I'm going to create a circle. I'm going to place it in the center here. So at the moment you can see I'm coming out, and well, we didn't place that in the center. Let's escape that. I need to use the sketch view section view through that, And well, we need to bring in the shape binder, but this is a perfect place to see what happens when we try to reference this edge. I click on the import external geometry and try roll over that edge. You can see, well, saying the object belongs to another body, can't link in the bottom left hand corner. So this is the reason why we use a shape binder. Sketch, view section, and the shape binder is here. That's reference that. If I hover over that, we can see we can pull that in. And that's pulled that in there. You can just see it there. Now that's come over to sketch and view section. You'll have the icon on the toolbar somewhere on here. I've lost mine. There it is here. And that's add a circle. So we're going to add a circle. Zoom in. This is an arc. So we're going to take this one and make those equal. So we've got that full circle there. Now if I hit close, I can hide the binder because we don't need it anymore. And if we look inside, we can see that circle there. And I'm going to pad this. So when I pad this sketch, I want to pad it from the center. So if I hit pad, what's going to happen is that it's just going to pad out this way. Let's click on this, press the space bar. Just clicked on the fusion, hit it by pressing the space bar. We can see we've got this in the center, and we'll increase this to say, pressing the page up, and it comes out this way. If I use symmetrical to plane, you can see how it's coming out this way here. So page up, page down. I can see how that's increasing in size. The symmetrical is not in relation to the fusion. So I press the spacebar on here, you can see that that's there. And let's bring back the fusion. We might be all right actually. No, we're okay. So we bring back the fusion and we can see how that's symmetrical to that plane there. So I'm looking for where we need to actually come out to, because this is going to be threaded into this connector and it's going to come out this end, and a hole will need to be placed in here so we can place some kind of pin through here. So let's come back to the task. I need to go out just enough to cover that. So that's about right. So that's about 70 from the top, 73. So I'm going to come all the way out, and what I'm seeing is that I need to go into directions. So I'm going to change the dimension and change it to 2 dimensions. So we've got our first dimension, which we can modify, and let's set this using the page up and page down. So we can move this quickly. That's finer adjustments. It's about there. The other dimension will come out, and pressing page up to get me into position, and we'll back this off a bit to around about here. So we've got our pin, or the stance of our pin. Let's OK that. And I'm going to take this face and create a sketch upon there. Let's bring in geometry. And we'll create a circle that comes out. And this is going to stop the pin from falling out. So we'll come out to about here. We can restrain this, but I'm just going to hit close. And I'm going to pad that as well by around about 3 mil. So we have that. It's okay. We do need a hole in here. And with the hole, what I'm going to do is attach a sketch to this face and probably rotate it, or we could use just one of the normal planes. So looking down from the top, we can use the top plane. So make sure nothing's selected, create a sketch, XY plane, okay that. We'll zoom in and we'll see that the plane moves this way. So you can see its position along here. The sketch is sitting on that plane there. We don't have to move it, but I want some reference. So I'm going to take this circle That'll project the circle flat against that plane from our viewpoint. So from the top, the plane is laying on the top, so it'll be projected downwards. And we'll hit escape and just use, I think also I'm going to bring in this edge here so I can know how wide this is. So let's bring in that edge. So that means when I go to the sketch and view section, I can see almost like a shadow of where our pin is. And I can line up a hole in here. So I'm going to place a hole around about here. I may push this a bit forward as well, because at the moment this is quite close. I want a decent sized hole to take a pin. Let's go for 4mm, and we'll place a line. Going to start at this point with this line, and we'll create a symmetrical constraint and turn this line into construction geometry. That means that will be positioned in the middle, and I can decide where this is going to go. So we can set the length of this line. Say 3mm, and OK. Let's close that. So we've got our sketch sitting underneath there. If I pocket that now, by clicking on the sketch and using the pocket, and we go through all, and use the reverse, that will reverse it, so it comes out the other side. So we reversed through this feature here. I'm going to increase the size of this feature, so let's come into the previous pad, which is this one here. So we're going backwards. Our tip is here. So this is the last action, but we've gone backwards. This one here. But that's this pad here. So that's that pad. If I come to the other one, so this is the one where we've gone 2 dimensions. Let's just increase this a bit. So the second length we'll push out a bit more, and OK that. Just to give us some breathing room, so I can place this hole in here. I can now come into that pocket and just adjust where that hole sits. So now I can change this, say 4mm, and close that. So let's move that away from that edge. So our pin is ready. Now we've got to do this plate here that connects it all together. Let's come into that body, right click, rename, and call this pin body. Hit enter. And I'm going to hide the fusion and hide the pin. Let's have a look at our next feature, this feature here. There are many ways of creating this object. Again, we could use the part, we could use the part design. We can start with this profile looking down. We can start with this profile from the side. There's going to be some guesswork trying to figure out the dimensions and also the angle. So you can see these angles here, but this shouldn't be too hard to model. Again, I'm going to use mirroring because we have this feature here, which is mirrored over to the other side. There's no point in creating 2 of these, but this plate, well, we might as well just create this plate in here and use a feature mirror within the part design. It's a very simple object, so let's have a go. Let's view and come down to toggle axis cross. And I'm going to move these image planes so they're in line here. If you wanted to keep them so they're still relative to our object, what we can do is just copy these. So I can take both of these and duplicate them. Go to edit and duplicate selected objects. So we've got 2 image planes, so I've duplicated those just by selecting both of them. I'm going to hide these image planes and hide the fusion. And I'm going to move them so they're by this axis cross. So this will be the center of rotation. As said, we don't have to do this. It just means that if we was modeling over here, when we right click and move this, or right click rotate, then this will be the point of rotation. Let's transform these. Right click transform. And this is where we want to figure out where we want to place this. So I'm looking at perhaps placing it on the bottom here. That's it, okay. Now the other one is this one. Image plane 3, and right click and transform. Remember, we've got placement as well, so we can move it via the placement for more accuracy. And I'm going to center it so the y-axis intersects roughly the middle of this circle here. That's okay, that. And start sketching. I'm going to start from the top. Make sure nothing's selected, and we'll create a body and create a sketch along the XY plane. Hit OK. Zoom in and create a rectangle. So I'm going to create a rectangle in here, like so. We also need a circle. Connect that to this line to create the circles in here. So we've got those. That's create the distance between these two. Now this is span distance, so this is the reason why we placed it across the middle, because we can take those 2 points and use the x-axis and use the symmetrical constraint, and then place a distance between these two of 129. So height 129, or we can just select this line and place 129 in there. We have some scaling that's out, but let's carry on. Next, let's take these two and make it symmetrical to the center point. Symmetry, again taking these two and setting the span the same as the plan, 103. Let's add some filleting in here. Now, one thing we must remember with the filleting with the sketch is that we have these constraints added. If we use the standard sketch fillet and say fillet off this edge, this constraint will disappear. Let's Control Z that. There is something called a constraint preserving sketch fillet, which when used, a fillet will be added, but the lines will be extended until they cross, and a point will be added. This preserves this 129mm going along here. And we can add that in to all the edges that need filleting. Once we've got those in there, we can set some radius. So let's press the right mouse button or hit escape to get the mouse pointer back and choose the edge, that curve there, and set the radius. We'll set that to 9mm. And we'll work our way around selecting the edges, and we make them all equal. So I'm just adding them to the hungry selection. Now they're all equal, that's set a distance between these 2 points. First of all, well, we need to add symmetry. So let's take these 2 points and the center point and make them symmetrical. So we've got those there. And now we can set the length between these 2 points. We can see that's 15.5. Let's add the diameter of this hole, 10mm. And we're fully constrained. Except, let's make these two equal. Now fully constrained. And we can close, and we've got that sketch in there. Come around to the side. I'm going to alter this image plane and move it to the right. So let's click on that image plane, this one here. Use the placement the position and looking along the X axis because it's not attached to anything. So it's the global coordinate system, and we can move that into position. And click on front and have a look. Now that's in position, we know how far to pad up with this sketch. Let's click the pad. We're padding that sketch there, and we can adjust it in line for what we see on the plan. Now this looks like a fillet of this feature here. So let's back this back and have a look, see what we've got. So I'm going to go for 3.5 for that and hit OK. Next, let's create this feature. Look at the top and see where it's going to sit. So it's going to sit in here somewhere. As said, there are multiple ways of creating this feature. I'm going to make sure nothing's selected and sketch it first without selecting any geometry for reference. What this allows me to do, let's go along the XZ plane, is just to get it sketched out without worrying about placement. I'm going to use the line tool and look how this is going to connect up. So I'm going to come up to here and also the same with this one. Remember, these are possible fillets. Sketch, view section, and we'll create a straight line closing that, and we need an arc. So using the endpoint and rim point arc, we'll come in and create an arc in here. Let's create some flow between these with tangency, so selecting these two, using the tangency, okay that, and let's do the same with the other one as well. Last of all, a circle for the pin. So look at the front, and let's set this circle for diameter. So it looks like 10 mil. Let's restrict the height. Again, we're going to need to do some guesswork in here because we're not 100% sure. 30 mil. And this length we do know. So this length here, it was the 15.5 and then we times it by 2. So 31 in here. And okay, so we've got that. And we can see how that's going to sit on there. And just close that and see what we have. So we have the sketch here. Come back into the sketch. Now I know what it looks like. Come in and pull in some geometry. So I'm going to pull in this side here. So let's come in. And we're looking just for the points. Bring those in and pull in those points there. Remember, we have got this image plane. So if you have problems trying to get to those points, then it might be worth coming in, hiding these image planes, or coming around to the other side and pulling in geometry from here. So now we've got those points in, we can take the points, make them coincident, and the same for this side. Well, we don't have to do it for this side, so that's fine because we've got a length in there. Fine adjustment. Set the angle between these two, this one and this one. And hit OK. So we've got this roughed out, let's close that, and it's in position. Well, say in position, we need to move it. Let's hide the pad by pressing the space bar and decide where this is going to sit. By clicking on the sketch that we just sketched and using the attachments, we can see the attachment offset is first, position, and we can change this position along the planes. So we're going to be going along the X plane, so you can see that moving back and forth along the X plane. The Y plane will be up and down, and the Z plane will be in and out. So it's moving in and out here. So let's move this into position. And we're going to pad this, so I'm going to place it here, like so. Bring back the pad. This is touching this pad, so we get a successful pad. If it wasn't, if we didn't bring in, say, this line and attached it to the line, then it wouldn't be touching. It has to be touching or intersecting to allow for a successful pad, otherwise we get a multi-body object. Let's take that sketch and pad it. So we've got a successful pad there. And we're looking to see how far we need to pad this. So I think it's going to be something like 2.5 mil. And hit OK. So we've got our pad. We need to mirror this over to the other side by using the mirror. And selecting which axis we want. So we want the base XZ plane. So it's mirrored it over this plane here. Hit OK. And we have our feature. If we wanted to make any adjustments in here, say we wanted these thicker, then we come back to the previous feature, this pad here, come in and adjust the length to 3mm. When we show the mirror, that will be taking effect on the other side as well. Let's have a look at our pin. So we've got the pin body. And the diameter of this pin should fit in here. We'll need to check that. Let's come back into the pin. And the sketch, this circle the sketch, double click it and come in. And if we wanted to, we can come in and add a dimension in here. So it's 10.97 and place that as a reference. So that gives us a reference dimension. So this hole has to be larger than this reference dimension. Let's close that and come back in. To the sketch. And this is not big enough, so let's double click that and set this to 12. So we've got the hole there. Close. So we now got our connecting piece. Let's have a look at all these together. So we've got the body, which I'm going to call the fastener. And we have the fusion. I'm going to save them and assemble them in the A2 Plus workbench. So creating a quick assembly for these. And then we can export these out as STL files so we can 3D print them and assemble them together for our final result. The assembly just lets us check to see if they're okay. So A2 Plus, if you haven't got it installed, then come over to Tools, Add-on Manager and install it there. I'm going to create a new document and we're going to import shapes from external file. Let's click on that. So before inserting, we need to save this empty document and I'm going to call this door hinge assembly. Import the parts from the door hinge. The fastener body is going to be the main part that everything connects to. So let's import that first. And that will be, if we look at the data, we can see if we come down, click on it first and come down, we can see the fixed position as true. So that's a static part, which is what we want. Import another part from the door hinge and we'll bring in the pin and import that. So got that there. This is not a static part, this will move. So we can take that and take, say, this circle edge in here, coming in, control clicking this circle edge and use the circle and circle constraint and set that. So we've got that in there and we can see how that's going to marry up. And any clearances that we need to reduce in our parts. So I might want to reduce this down a bit. let's add the next part from the door hinge, and we go for the fusion. So this is the last part. Import that, and we have this part here. Let's place it. Now we're going to come in and attach this circle to the body of this circle here. Control click both of those, and we're going to use the add axis coincident constraint. So let's add that in there, and we can move that. So at the moment you can see we've got the clearance in there, and we can move that into position. Now we've got the constrained properties. We can see we haven't got any offset. We need some offset in here. So let's delete that and delete that constraint. Let's come in. We can see the axis constraint in there. So I'm just going to delete that. And that's no good for us. So I'm going to take this circle again, and we'll use the same circle constraint. So this circle here, I'm going to use a circle and the pin, circle and circle constraint. Now we've got an offset, and I can move this offset and move the hinge into place. So this allows me to check that everything will fit in what we've just done. By looking at this, I can see that, well, maybe I would want to tighten up, say, this pin, reduce the size of this. So set that, so I can take this one and just back this off a bit. So come in here, double click it, and use the offset just to move this back. There you go, and set that. So let's back this down a bit. So I'm just going to save and come back, file, recent files, back to the door hinge, and click on our pin. So we've got two files open now. We've got the pocket, we've got the pad. Let's press the space bar, we can see that. And we've got the previous pad as well, this one here. Let's double click that pad and reduce its length. So I'm going the wrong way. Let's go the second length. Let's reduce this right down. And OK. Save it, come back to our door hinge assembly. We need to update the parts in our assembly by clicking the update parts recursively. And we can see how that's moved back. This is now moved back. Everything else will move back as well because we've got offsets in here. So I'm going to click on the hinge to go into the model. So this fusion, and look at the circle constraint and modify the offset. So it's back in place, and accept that. So there we have it. We have the hinge, the pin, and the connection point all modeled. And we can take each of these and 3D print them just by clicking on them and exporting each one. We can do that from the assembly, or actually do it from the file itself, this file itself. So I hope that's given you an idea of how to use that intersecting common workflow to create such objects like this and the assembly workbench to bring them all together. Hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to see you again soon. If you like what you see and you want to donate to the channel, then you can do so via PayPal at paypal.com/PayPalMe/Darren B.E. Stone, or at Ko-Fi or Coffee via ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can get early access and additional content, and that's at patreon.com/Mango Jelly Solutions. Links can be found in the channel header, on the About page, or in the descriptions of these videos. I thank everybody that's donated so far. It really helps to keep the lights on so I can produce more content and also expand the channel. Thank you for liking, commenting and subscribing to these videos, and I hope to see you again in the next one.